name is Corey Willie, and this is my field experience assignment. I did my field experience at R.J. Longstreet. It's a school in Daytona Beach, Florida. It is a Title I school, which means they are eligible to more money, more grants from the government to buy technology, to help pay for certain things that students need. Longstreet is about 40% African American, 20% Hispanic, and 40% white. That's a pretty good mix of races and ethnicities at the school. In the classroom I shadowed in, it was an online class, and it was pretty true to that, honestly. It wasn't 50-50, I would say it was really 40-40 and 20. There was 13 kids in the classroom, and all of the students would log on to their portal, and Mrs. Schoen would teach from the computer. Teaching an online classroom means she has no free lunch students currently, but Longstreet has over half of their kids on free or reduced lunch, which is a very high number, which helps them be eligible for the Title I benefits for their school. R.J. Longstreet has about 230 children. Of those 230, roughly 40 are ESE. In the classroom that I shadowed, there was one ELL student and 2 children on IEPs. One child that was on the IEP had tremors, and the other had a speech disorder. The ELL student does not know English very well. The school has provided services to all exceptionalities in the past. My teachers described very, very extreme situations and more easily accommodating services that they can provide. In my own words, the difference between an accommodation and a modification would be: an accommodation is something you give or provide to even the playing field. So for example, in Mrs. Schoen's classroom, there's a student with tremors. So he gets an iPad, and that's an accommodation kind of for him to be able to stay on par with everyone else. So he can write his questions on that pad or type the questions rather than have to, use his pen and paper where it may not be legible. A modification would be if a student or group or the whole class did really bad on one subject or one specific area. You could kind of maybe think, oh, as a teacher, I was not teaching this good enough, and you could now make a modification in how you're either explaining it or teaching. You could do you could try different things, as watching a video about it, doing an experiment if it was science, showing them rather than just telling them, or getting the students involved. So you can make any modification to how you are teaching. I asked my teacher how she planned for students with exceptionalities. And she said in the past, she's had more extreme cases of the exceptionality. So 2 years ago, she had a student with autism. And before the school year started, she met with all of his specialists because he had multiple physical therapy and other things to help him. And after meeting with all of those specialists, she realized, okay, what does the student like? How does he best perform? And they gave her tips on that. So he liked to be on an island by himself. So he wanted his desk separate from everybody else's. He preferred tape around his desk so he could understand he could get up freely and know where he could walk without getting in trouble or anything like that. And she also learned other things about his personality before the school year started, so she was fully prepared. This year, she met with one of the students' specialists who had tremors, and she got a breakdown of what she should expect and how she can best teach the student. Understanding the use of the iPad, the certain programs that he will have access to and likes to use. So basically, to prepare for any exceptional student, before the school year starts, my teacher said that she meets with the appropriate person, either a former teacher or a specialist or even parents, to further understand how she can best be able to help teach the student. In my experience shadowing this year, I've been in classrooms with just the teacher, and it's been online classes. So it is a little bit tougher to see the accommodations that could be taking place. But talking with my teacher, she explained how she has made accommodations in the past. For example, like I just discussed with the autistic student, she put him on, not on an island, but that was her words, but she moved his desk to be by himself with tape around it so he knew his boundaries, and that is what he liked. That's what the specialist told her to do. So those are the type of accommodations that she normally makes. This year she had 2 students with IEPs. One was a child with tremors and the other was with a speech disability. The child with tremors, both students actually are given extra time on assignments. She's able to read to them the questions of the assignments, whereas the other children, she's not allowed to read them the questions. And assistive technology is used, iPads, extra screen time. For the child with the speech disability, he can go on a certain app, I believe is what it is, and he can hear things how they're supposed to be said. The child with tremors can use certain apps to finish his work and show that he understands, but he's just not able to write it. It kind of bridges the gap of, in the past where a student had tremors, they were kind of left out in the dark. Now they can be part of the class, do the same stuff, and give in real time the same answers without having to struggle now writing, that he can just punch it right on his iPad and the teacher gets the answers the same way. I walked around the school. I'm very familiar with Longstreet. I went there myself as a student, so I'm pretty familiar with the school. I would say the school is very accommodating. The sidewalks are very, very large, very wide. It's all under overhang, so it's an outside school with the hallways being outside, but all the classrooms inside, obviously. I'd say it's very easily accessible for children or teachers or parents in wheelchairs. There are multiple ramps leading up because when you pull into the parking lot, you do have to take about a foot step up. So there's ramps on all of those except for like 2. The only area I'd say is not very accommodating, and it would be disappointing, is the outside playground areas. There is a sidewalk leading to the end of the overhang on the sidewalk, and from there it is grass and dirt walking out to the playground and sand and that kind of thing. So in order for a student to get out there, it would not be accessible for a child in a wheelchair. Crutches, that sort of thing, it would still be accessible, but it would make it much more challenging. But everywhere else in the entire school, from the cafeteria to the art room to the music room, is still all accessible for all students of any exceptionality. Thinking about blind or deaf students, it would be accommodating for them because the sidewalks are rather large. The only reason it may not be is because the sidewalks, it's outside on the hallways, so the side, there's no side walls for a student to use if they were using a pole or a guide of some sort like that, unless they were using a guide dog. It would be challenging in that because they could not feel exactly where they are. But I would assume somebody that is blind or deaf has exceptional training on this and could adapt to it. In the future, it would probably be better to build schools that could have those barriers so they could learn and really tell where they are. Because if a student was using a guide pole, it could go outside of the hallway or outside of the walkway in the hallway, and they could lose track of where they are. Accommodations I observed were pretty simple. It was an iPad, and it was translated papers. Those were some of the bigger accommodations that I saw, as well as many smaller ones, such as giving extra time and reading the questions directly to the students during assessments and other things like that, giving the students a little extra time. Modifications that I observed were At one point, the students were not really listening that well. You could tell they were kind of getting bored. So my teacher, Mrs. Schoen, made a quick modification and gave them a quick 2 minutes just to relax. And she put on a funny video. And after she did that, the children were more focused on learning, and they actually were a little looser. She described it as a brain break, and she played like a 1 minute, 30-second video, and the kids were dancing to it and everything. That was really the only modification that I saw in my 15 hours. But she did that several times because online, she said, the kids, it's really hard to keep them focused. For the teaching strategies of the ESE students, I noticed my teacher being very patient with the students. For one of the assessments, she took she has to because of the IEP, but she took the time to read the questions to the students and kind of made sure they understood the questions. And one of the students used his iPad to answer the questions. The other student got extra time, or they both got extra time, but the other student got a little bit more, I believe, because she was a non-English speaking student, so it took her a little extra time to understand that. I believe the program on the computer she was using was able to be translated into Spanish, so that was an accommodation of sorts as well. My teacher still tests the students with exceptionalities. They still have to be assessed the same as the other children, but they can get a little bit more help. She can read them the questions. They can not ask questions about the test, but if they didn't understand a certain word or how the question was, she could reread it to them and things like that. She communicates with the parents. Her principal likes them every semester to have a conference with the parents of those children. And in that, she has a sheet that kind of has been assessing them throughout the semester, tells the parents what they've been excelling on, what they need to work on, what they can do, and the parents are able to say what the child is learning from best, and they kind of can make a collaborative effort on this. And she says it is very helpful when she has that communication with the parents and having them on board rather than just teaching and the parents aren't involved. She said that's one of the most challenging things when the parents are not involved. My teacher's role in the IEP is when they call the meetings, she goes into the meetings with the principal and all the other specialists and people involved in the team, and she just describes how they're doing. She can set different goals or listen to what they want their goals to be. And they kind of just get all on the same page. That's her role there. And then her role after the IEP meeting is to now initiate and follow the IEP instructions in the classroom. So for example, if the student, they said, okay, he no longer needs the IEP, she would not give the IEP. But if they said a new thing like he gets 20 minutes of reading extra or on assignment, she would then have to make sure that he gets that extra time and make sure that she's either reading or whatever the IEP specifies after that. My teacher has 2 students with IEPs and 1 ELL student. What did I learn from this experience? I learned that being patient is a virtue. I understand that as a teacher now, you have to be patient. I see myself being a very patient person already. And so if you have a student with exceptionality, which it's not your choice, at least at Longstreet, you kind of are given the students that you are given. And if you're good at handling them, it seems you get more of the exceptional students, which to me is something you can be proud of. My teacher, for example, has had autistic students and tremors and all these different variations. Now Longstreet they don't often see the extremes because of the area they're in for whatever reason, as my teacher was saying. But when they have the kids with autism or anything like that, she's had a lot of those kids, and she said she's really enjoyed the moments she's had with them, because at the end of the year she can kind of see their progression and understand them more as just an exceptionality and as a student, as a person, just like the rest of their students. She said it's the most frustrating thing when one of her students leave and go to another teacher who doesn't handle the exceptionality as well as they should. And she said that's really frustrating to her because she's taken time to really work and build with that student. And then the next teacher kind of does the bare minimum of following an IEP, not going the extra step. So from this experience, I've learned that if I have an exceptional student, I need to take it very serious and help them build and be the change that they want to be. After this entire experience, I would definitely encourage my principal to give me students with IEPs and ELL students. I know very little Spanish if there is a Spanish-speaking ELL, but I would love that challenge to learn. And in college right now, next semester, I will be taking Spanish 1 and 2. So that will be hopefully a beneficial factor towards my overall career in the future. As a conclusion, I've thoroughly enjoyed all of the time in all of my classes that I've spent in the classroom. It has not been as fun shadowing online teachers as it has in the past been in person and being around kids and, taking in donuts the first day, that kind of thing. But it is really cool they get really excited when the Mrs. Schoen goes, "Oh, this is Mr. Willie," and the kids are, "Oh, wow." It's a really fun, awesome assignment to have to go into these schools and meet kids and all of this kind of thing. And overall, Longstreet is a wonderful school. Unfortunately, it is sad knowing that there's more than half students on free or reduced lunch. It is sad. But it is really nice and really great that they do get Title I benefits and they're able to help those students a little bit more than maybe if they were at another school that wasn't a Title I school. And that's a little bit beyond what I've learned with Title I. We didn't study that much in this class, which is understandable. But it was a beautiful experience, and I'm very happy that I went through this. Thank you.